You too, my child.
Welcome to MojoPlays, and today we're looking at 30 of the most fascinating historical events recreated in Assassin's Creed. Before we begin, we publish new content all week long, so be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. The Battle of Quiberon Bay, Assassin's Creed Rogue. While all of the European powers operating in the Americas at this time were committing their fair share of atrocities, in the world of Assassin's Creed, the British and Spanish are on the side of the Templars, while the French are allies with the Assassins. When Rogue takes you to the Templar side of the conflict, Shay spends a lot of his time helping the Royal Navy throughout the 7 Years' War in the North Atlantic. One optional engagement is the Battle of Quiberon Bay in 1759, in which the Royal Navy triumphed over France and ended France's time as a key naval power. This is the site of one of Rogue's legendary ship battles as Shay sinks the Formidable. Louisiana Rebellion of 1768, Assassin's Creed III, Liberation.
This Spanish governor has placed so many restrictions on trade, even plantation owners are practically begging for an excuse to riot.
9 years on from Quiberon Bay, and French control throughout the Americas was waning. As part of the treaties of Fontainebleau in Paris, France's colonies in Louisiana were ceded to Spain. But the French Creoles in New Orleans didn't want to be part of the Spanish Empire, so they rebelled in 1768.
Look around, old man. Your hired hands will flee at the first sign of trouble.
Aye, but the lady's temper alone could take on an army.
In Liberation, we find out that the rebellion was organized by Aveline de Cambrai to create an opportunity to interrogate the Spanish governor, Antonio de Ulloa. Through de Ulloa, Aveline learns that the Templars are excavating Isu artifacts in Chichen Itza. The rebellion failed, but Aveline got what she wanted.
I will turn my back now and walk away. If you would like to keep your life, you will remove yourself from this continent, never to be seen again.
Thank you for your mess.
The Haitian Revolution, Assassin's Creed IV, Black Flag.
You know well the grounds of the governor's residence. Choose your moment. Do not get caught.
Black Flag's standalone DLC, Freedom Cry, took us to Haiti, which was always on the base game's map but largely inaccessible. It's set in the 1730s, 16 years before the successful Haitian Revolution began, but sees Adewale laying the seeds for rebellion as he works to free slaves in the French colony. Known as Saint-Domingue at the time, it was a leading producer of sugar made via brutal slave labor on plantations. It's a little anachronistic, but it shows the decades of violence and buildup that eventually led to the Haitian Revolution, which remains the most successful slave revolt in modern history.
But they're not even human. Without the discipline and guidance of their masters, they turn to rebellion. Murder. Like you.
Samhain, Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
It's hardly a disguise, just a cloak and some bones.
Nonsense. You are the very spirit of the Mary Louvre.
This isn't one historical event, but a traditional pagan celebration which still exists today as Halloween. Beginning thousands of years ago, Samhain is a festival marking the beginning of winter, but is also associated with the supernatural, as doorways to the other world, the land of spirits, opened. In Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Eivor goes to Gloucester and partakes in many traditional activities, including going trick-or-treating, known as guising.
Trick-or-treat! What business have you? Oh, the Mary Louis. Right. We're doing cakes instead of beer this year.
You also get to see old-fashioned jack-o'-lanterns made of turnips, not pumpkins. This is because pumpkins aren't native to the British Isles, so they weren't available to Gaelic and Celtic cultures at the time, which is unfortunate because pumpkins are much easier to carve. The arc culminates with another gruesome tradition, as the Elderman is burned alive in a wicker man. Honnō-ji Incident, Assassin's Creed Shadows. We haven't seen this play out yet, but it's certainly going to be a key event in Assassin's Creed Shadows. One of the two leads is Yasuke, a samurai under Oda Nobunaga known as the Great Unifier of Japan. Nobunaga ultimately died in 1582 after one of his most loyal servants. We're not sure whether Nobunaga will be a Templar leader or potentially Mitsuhide, but since Shadows takes place in the final years of the Sengoku period,
the daimyo. He's there.
Who will take the lead?
We can sneak in.
This is definitely going to be covered in the game. We'd even go as far to say it will be part of the game's climactic ending sequence.
Two being allies then.
The Zanj Uprising, Assassin's Creed Mirage.
You were once imprisoned here.
Oh no, I have never been inside. In fact, I have never stood closer than this very place.
Slavery has existed for thousands of years and was utilized by the Abbasid Caliphate in the Middle East. In Mirage, Basim is soon tasked with freeing the leader of the Zanj rebellion, Ali ibn Muhammad, from Damascus Gate prison. Ali and his rebels might be useful to the assassin cause as they try to eradicate the Templars from Baghdad. Basim is skeptical of Ali, who questions whether Basim is truly free under the creed as he claims to be, or whether he is blindly following an ideology.
I will find who did this, and I will kill them all. You have my word.
Basim is right. Let him do this.
As we know from Valhalla, Basim will eventually start using the assassins for his own ends as he tries to reunite with his lover, whose consciousness is trapped in the Staff of Hermes.
And Basim, work quickly. You see what is at stake.
The Ghost Club, Assassin's Creed Syndicate.
Bloody Drood! I'll never finish it at this rate. Only Providence knows where those words are headed now.
A lot of famous faces were active in London in the 1860s. Charles Darwin, Florence Nightingale, Karl Marx, Arthur Conan Doyle, and of course, Charles Dickens. All of them need the Fry twins' help at one point or another, but Dickens has some of the most entertaining side missions of all.
Tell me, do you believe in ghosts? Not particularly.
He wants the Frys to help him debunk London's many hauntings, to find out what's really going bump in the night. This is all completely true. In real life, Dickens was a founding member of the Ghost Club, whose members exposed fraudulent psychics and phony hauntings, all of which were lucrative scams taking advantage of suspicious Victorians.
The Ghost Club's reputation has grown tremendously. We are a beacon of reason in a world beguiled by superstition.
The Siege of Acre, Assassin's Creed. This port city was fought over during the Crusades for hundreds of years and was besieged as recently as 1799 by the French. But we're talking about the 1189 to 1191 Siege of Acre, which is the one affecting the city when Altair visits.
A little bird told me you'd be paying a visit. Al-Muallim has ordered the execution of Garnier de Naplouse.
Though control of the city changed hands many times, at this point it was under the control of Saladin, though it's eventually occupied by Crusaders yet again before the game ends. You can see Crusader influence everywhere in the city. It even has a vast European cathedral, though the cathedral's Gothic architectural style is not historically accurate. Acre is the most blighted city in the entire game, with its citizens suffering greatly due to the war.
Rumors speak of atrocities committed within its walls. It seems the good doctor enjoys experimenting on innocent citizens.
The Peloponnesian War, Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
A capable mistio such as yourself would be well compensated. Care to share in our upcoming victory against the Athenians?
The oldest set game in the series remains Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which takes us to the 5th century BC. Greece is not yet a unified country and is instead dominated by various city-states, namely Athens and Sparta. The two vie for control of the archipelago both on land and at sea, with Sparta generally having land dominance, while Athens was a naval power. Throughout Odyssey, Cassandra plays both sides.
I'll join you.
Good. We're glad to have your sword.
My spear is yours.
We'll make good use of it.
While she's Spartan by birth, she makes key allies in Athens throughout the game, and you can turn the tide of the war in whichever direction you choose. No region is permanently held for one side, however, giving you endless battles to fight. Execution of Louis XVI, Assassin's Creed Unity.
Bring forth the condemned.
The last king of France before the Revolution is only a minor player in Unity, hardly seen until we arrive at his execution in 1793. Honnō wants to use the king's execution as an opportunity to get the game's main villain, François-Thomas Germain. He's unsuccessful in his assassination because Germain knows he's coming, but Germain does explain why he's been purging the Templar Order from within and why he killed de la Serre at the start of the game.
But the Order had become corrupt, clutching at power and privilege for their own sake.
But you could set it right. Is that it? All by killing the man in charge.
Louis also addresses the crowd on his way to the guillotine, and his last words are those given by the executioner's real-life account of the event in a letter.
Je suis innocent de tout ce dont on m'inculpe. Je souhaite que mon sang puisse cimenter le bonheur des Français.
The Great Fire of New York, Assassin's Creed 3. By the time Connor arrives in New York, the city has already been ravaged by the Great Fire of 1776. While we don't see the fire happen itself, its effects are far-reaching. Much of the lower west side of Manhattan was destroyed, making the situation for New Yorkers even worse considering they were, by this point, living under British occupation. Connor has his work cut out trying to help the people trying to live in the burned districts. Though people have theorized for hundreds of years that the fire was caused by arson, it's still unknown, and Ubisoft didn't decide to blame any particular side. Interestingly, you were supposed to see the fire happen originally, but it was too difficult for Ubisoft to pull off. The Cult of Reason, Assassin's Creed Unity. You may miss the significance of this if you're not already a fan of French Revolution history, but when Honnō conducts his assassination mission in Notre Dame Cathedral early on in Unity, the cathedral is not in possession of the church. As part of the revolution, the Jacobin government at the time de-Christianized France, which led to the rise of the Cult of Reason, an extremist atheist religion sponsored by the National Convention that was given control of Notre Dame.
Credis etiam novi, et veteris testamenti.
The cathedral was vandalized and occupied by the cult, which eventually became so extreme that the government was forced to disavow it and create a new one, the Cult of the Supreme Being. Notre Dame is in this unfortunate condition during most of Unity.
Tout est en place.
Il a enfin entendu raison. Quelle est notre part?
3
The 7 Years' War, Assassin's Creed Rogue.
God had nothing to do with this.
This complex period in world history was covered by Assassin's Creed Rogue, with Shay and his fellow Templars aligned with the British this time, primarily fighting French ships on the high seas. The huge war had ramifications for the entire planet, and is what led to the French territories in Canada eventually coming under British control.
Ran them right out of their own den. And I was looking for a new place to live.
It changed the balance of power forever, and from the war, the British became the strongest imperial force on Earth, largely ending the age in which Britain, France, Spain, and Portugal were all vying for control of the land and seas. And maybe Shay Cormac sinking all those French ships so he could upgrade his puckle guns was the reason the British won. This time. The Siege of Paris, Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
They scour the lands of England.
Ubisoft deemed this event so noteworthy that an entire DLC of Assassin's Creed Valhalla was built around it. In the year 885 AD, Vikings sailed along the River Seine to arrive at Paris, which was already a major city by this point. For nearly a year, Paris was besieged by the Viking invaders, with King Charles III, better known as Charles the Fat, leading the Franks in their defense. Whether the Vikings won or lost the siege depends on who you ask, and Valhalla seems to show their ultimate defeat in a different light. While they never did breach Paris truly, Charles the Fat eventually paid them off and sent them away to attack nearby Burgundy instead. Paul Revere's Midnight Ride, Assassin's Creed 3.
Ah, Connor! What a relief! You came!
On April 19, 1775, the American Revolutionary War officially broke out, with British and Patriot forces clashing in the Battle of Lexington and Concord. But during the previous night, the 18th, the colonial militias had been warned of the British approach by Paul Revere, who rode across Massachusetts to deliver the news.
You take the reins, I'll navigate. Quickly, Connor, get on the horse!
In the end, the Americans won and the war began. In Assassin's Creed 3, Connor is the one riding the horse through the towns, directed by Revere after the two had already met during the Boston Tea Party. Revere turned out to be an irritating backseat driver, however, with Connor doing all the hard work.
Connor, it's best you stay here and help our man John Parker hold the town. It'll give us time to spread the word.
Bombing raids. Assassin's Creed Syndicate. The London Blitz during World War II is a well-known part of history, but did you know that German forces carried out bombing raids in the First World War as well? The war broke out only 11 years after the Wright brothers' first successful flight, which meant most of these German raids were actually carried out by Zeppelins. In Assassin's Creed Syndicate, we see all this happen during the World War I side missions with Lydia Frye, who's enlisted to help in the war effort by Winston Churchill in 1916. Among other activities, she fights off those bombing raids and defends London from aerial attack. The Papacy Conspiracy, Assassin's Creed 2.
Do you think me blind and deaf, son? I know all about your fight with Vieri di Pazzi last night, and then this little visit to Christina.
In the 15th century, Italy still hadn't been unified. Instead, the peninsula was made up of large independent states and cities, including Florence, the heart of the Renaissance, which was controlled by the Medici family. The Medicis are always allied with the Auditores in Assassin's Creed, though the latter didn't actually exist, to the extent that Ezio seeks revenge against the Pazzis for conspiring to depose the Medicis.
Who? Francesco de Pazzi.
That, and the fact that the Papacy conspirators were also to blame for the deaths of Ezio's father and brothers. In reality, the Papacy conspirators were banished and practically erased from history after trying to publicly assassinate Lorenzo de' Medici. The 1715 Spanish treasure fleet, Assassin's Creed 4, Black Flag.
And there I am, a man of quality, with 1,000 doubloons spilling from my pockets like drops of rain. I can see it.
In 1715, a huge treasure fleet left the Americas to send vast amounts of gold and silver to Spain. And loaded onto one of those ships, having been taken prisoner, was notorious pirate Edward Kenway and his future quartermaster Adewale.
I'm Edward. Much thanks for your aid back there.
Adewale.
The fleet was struck by a hurricane in the Caribbean Sea, with all the ships except one destroyed in the storm. In reality, this was a French ship, Le Griffon, while in Black Flag, the surviving ship is the one that becomes the Jackdaw. Edward later returns to the site of the wreckage to go diving. The remains of the treasure fleet are still some of the most valuable shipwrecks in the world centuries later.
All hands aft, lads! We're taking this one home!
The Thermidorian Reaction, Assassin's Creed Unity. The French Revolution brought big changes, including restructuring the months of the year and the hours of the day to all be in multiples of 10. That's what gives the Thermidorian Reaction its name. It was named after the new month it happened in, Thermidor, when Maximilien Robespierre was violently deposed. The Hôtel de Ville was stormed and somebody shot Robespierre in the jaw, Élise de la Serre, according to Ubisoft.
Then right.
He was then taken away and promptly executed, bringing the revolution into a new era, where the original Reign of Terror was replaced with the White Terror, and the Jacobin revolutionaries were now the targets of state violence instead of the perpetrators.
The temple. I should have known. I hope you enjoy revolutionary justice, monsieur.
The Battle of Thermopylae, Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
Persians come to make slaves of us all. I have a better idea.
Cassandra and Alexios are descendants of the great Spartan king Leonidas I, who famously led an army of 300 Spartans to defend Greece against the invading Persian army led by Xerxes. The Greeks were defeated by the Persians at the Battle of Thermopylae in the year 480 BC, with a few thousand Greek soldiers left. It wasn't actually 300.
Today was a day the Persians will never forget.
They retreated and Leonidas stayed to defend them, eventually losing the battle. It's this battle that Assassin's Creed Odyssey opens up with, and you actually play as Leonidas holding back Xerxes before you meet Cassandra or Alexios. Decades later, and they still wield Leonidas' broken spear.
This is big, Layla. Did you really think it's the spear?
This is the one. The book was almost right on top of it.
The 1755 Lisbon earthquake. Assassin's Creed Rogue. Portugal's capital city was practically destroyed by a debilitating earthquake in 1755 in a natural disaster that caused up to 50,000 deaths at the highest estimates. You experienced the quake firsthand near the beginning of Assassin's Creed Rogue. It's triggered by Shay taking a piece of Eden from a vault beneath the city, and is the inciting incident that causes Shay to lead the assassins.
God had nothing to do with this.
He decides that no organization that allows so many lives to be lost just for the sake of another Isu relic is worth his time, and defects to the Templars. The Lisbon earthquake broke the streets apart and destroyed thousands of buildings, and is recreated in one of the franchise's best and most tragic platforming sections. The Battle of Chippenham, Assassin's Creed Valhalla. One of the major antagonists of AC Valhalla is Alfred of Wessex, better known as Alfred the Great, one of England's most famous kings. Though history generally remembers Alfred the Great positively, hence the name, Valhalla took a different perspective, and that shows particularly in its vision of the Battle of Chippenham.
Men of Wessex! They came from every house and hovel!
This was a major battle between the Anglo-Saxons and the invading Vikings, one in which the Vikings ended up winning, seizing control of the entire region for some time. Eivor and the Raven clan joined forces with the Great Heathen Army, which was the real army involved in the conflict, and take Wessex, though it was only set to be theirs for a few months.
The city is ours! Wessex will follow!
The Borgia Papacy, Assassin's Creed 2, and Assassin's Creed Brotherhood.
What better way to celebrate my victories than to join in the Brotherhood of Man?
One of the most notorious noble families to ever live, the Borgias have certainly been painted as villains by history, including when they appeared during the Ezio trilogy. Cesare Borgia is the main antagonist of Brotherhood, while his father Rodrigo takes control of the Vatican, becoming Pope Alexander VI.
Why did you not stop them? As if I could. It was not my decision to attack Monteriggione, it was yours!
Today, it's not clear how much about the Borgias is true and how much was slander invented by their rivals in European high society, but they did exist and also had control of Italy for a time. Being Spanish, they weren't particularly popular in Italy, and that's definitely something the games get right, since Ezio spends his time trying to oust them from power.
It's finished, Rodrigo! Lay down your arms, and I will make sure the end comes swiftly.
The Third Crusade, Assassin's Creed.
You know not the things in which you meddle, assassin.
Both the Assassin Brotherhood and the Knights Templar have their origins in the Crusades, despite both groups having existed for far longer according to the lore of later games, becoming the Hidden Ones and the Order of Ancients. But the very first game tackled the Crusades and their atrocities head-on, pitting Altair against many of the Holy Land's most important figures, such as Richard the Lionheart.
Vengeance, then? No, not vengeance. Justice.
And when you're not eavesdropping on conversations in one of the three main cities, you'll be riding through war-torn no man's land, just trying to get from one side to another without being taken out by a bloodthirsty crusader.
So be it. To arms, assassin!
The Plague of Athens, Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
What's going on?
Kausos was consumed by plague. We couldn't keep up with the bodies. It was spreading. We had to intervene.
In the year 430 BC, and for a few years subsequently, Athens was struck by a devastating plague that killed tens of thousands of people. In Assassin's Creed Odyssey, you witness the horrors of the plague outbreak, complete with a great color filter on your screen, including the death of Athenian leader Pericles.
At least I'm alive. Though I can't say the same for my city.
But Assassin's Creed still can't shed light on one of history's biggest mysteries. What was the disease that caused the devastating plague? It may have been the Black Death, but it's also been theorized to have been everything else from measles to Ebola, and some medical evidence suggests it might have even been typhoid.
There is a blood fever. They say it's a curse and they need help from the gods.
Blackbeard's Death, Assassin's Creed 4, Black Flag.
Nothing round this spot, sadly. But there's a few wrecks yonder that ain't been scoured by nothing but crabs and coral.
You'll encounter many of history's most notorious pirates throughout Black Flag, including Anne Bonny, Mary Read, Black Bart, and, of course, Blackbeard himself, perhaps the most infamous of all. But just like in real life, Blackbeard meets an untimely and grisly end. He was killed during a surprise attack planned by Robert Maynard of the Royal Navy, who pursued him relentlessly for some time. Upon his death, Blackbeard had his head cut off and taken as a trophy by Maynard, who planned to use it to claim a bounty. He's given more of a hero's death in Black Flag, since he's one of Kenway's allies, but it's still relatively true to life.
You'll be hanged and sun-dried just as them there were in Boston.
The king's called for a pardon.
The Ides of March, Assassin's Creed Origins.
The people love you, Caesar. You're a god.
The Senate will not bow so easily.
A parliament of clucking hens.
Another high-profile death that aimed to recreate history to the letter came in Assassin's Creed Origins, where Julius Caesar is murdered by his fellow Roman senators for trying to make himself the Emperor of Rome. Roman emperors did exist, of course, but not until after Caesar had been gone, which is why the other politicians didn't take kindly to him becoming a dictator.
If you ally with my sister, I will kill every last Roman in Alexandria.
You've already had plenty of encounters with Caesar by this point, including witnessing his affair with Cleopatra, but it was certainly a dramatic moment to see his demise. He was brutally stabbed to death by a dozen men in broad daylight who were supposedly members of the assassins in-game.
You too, my child.
Storming of the Bastille, Assassin's Creed Unity.
Where am I? In hell.
The French Revolution officially began on July 14, 1789, still celebrated as Bastille Day every year in modern France. The Bastille, a large and oppressive prison in Paris, had stood for hundreds of years, starting life as a fortress. But while it was capable of repelling British invasions, it eventually fell to the revolutionaries, who stormed the prison and broke the prisoners out. And one of those prisoners was, of course, Honnō-Dorian, soon-to-be assassin.
What? Prison scrambled your brains, old man?
Drink took care of that a long time ago.
Arnaud didn't really exist, but the Bastille's storming remains one of the most important political moments in French history, leading to the establishment of the First French Republic and the advent of the Revolution.
Goodbye, Piss-Pot!
The Boston Tea Party, Assassin's Creed 3.
The Sons of Liberty get to send a message to England, and you rob William Johnson of his financing. Your village will be saved.
In 1773, American radicals launched a protest against the British colonial rulers, who had imposed higher taxes on tea that wasn't sold by the East India Company. Outraged by British taxation, the Sons of Liberty took large amounts of the East India Company's tea and dumped it in the Boston Harbor.
We need to keep those bastards at bay while the tea's being dumped.
Let me up.
In Assassin's Creed 3, this has the secondary aim of financially damaging the Templars, which is why it's Connor who has the honor of carrying the tea and tossing it into the ocean. It's still a huge part of Boston's history, and one of the first incidents in the successful American Revolution. Connor really hit the British where it hurts, right in the tea bags. Jack the Ripper's Killing Spree, Assassin's Creed Syndicate.
Stop! You want me, Jack? Come and kill me!
The most notorious serial killer in history, Jack the Ripper was famously never caught or held responsible for his violent crimes. Syndicate mostly takes place in the 1860s, which left room for an entire DLC set in the unforgiving winter of 1888, when the Ripper was at large. Evie Fry returns from abroad and is tasked with unmasking the Ripper by Aberlin when everybody believes her brother Jacob is responsible.
Only you know who the Ripper is, but you can't tell a living soul because it would destroy you and the assassins.
Of course, you can't set a game in Victorian London without getting Jack the Ripper in there somewhere, and dedicating a whole expansion gave these ghastly crimes the weight they deserve, saving them from becoming another of Syndicate's penny dreadful side missions.
Rest in peace now, Jack. You and your twisted acolytes.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, there's more where that came from.